Dude, I have a fitness competition on Saturday.
What, where?
It's called High Rocks. I've never done a fitness competition before.
What is it?
My friends dragged me into it.
Is it one of those where you like oil yourself up and wear a Speedo?
Yeah,
and get
exactly.
On stage
That's,
and go like
that's
this?
exactly right.
Yeah.
I will never be doing one of those. It's basically like a big CrossFit workout. It's going to take me like 2 hours to do it.
Whoa.
It's a lot.
It's a competition. So like, how do you win? By doing it fastest? Or?
Yeah. It's a fixed amount of work. And then there's teams of 2 and then you compete. So I'm doing it with my friend Mark.
Nice.
Yeah. And then we have some other friends doing it.
Nice.
Rob and Damien are doing it together. And then Mike and this other guy from the gym are doing it together.
Where is it?
It's like, I think it's in Brooklyn.
Cool.
And it's like Saturday and like you have different heats and stuff. I think there's like hundreds or maybe over 1,000 people doing it. It's a pretty big deal. Like,
dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've never done anything like it before. It's like a lot of running. It's like there's like eight heats, and then in between 8 exercises, I guess. And in between each one, there's like it's a good amount of running. I think it might be like a half a mile running in between each one. So you end up running like
4 miles,
something like that.
Cool.
Maybe even more. Because like, yeah, something like that. I think it's something like that. But that's after a lot of work. So like you have like one of them is like a 275-pound sled push, 275-pound sled pull. There's like weighted lunges. There's burpees. There's wall balls. And then there's some other ones I'm forgetting. Fortunately, there's no pull-ups. If there's any pull-ups, I'd be like, yeah, no chance. You kind of split the work.
Okay, that's exactly. Yeah,
there's rowing.
Oh,
I'm good at those.
Okay.
Yeah, we did that this morning. Actually, he had us do like a ski erg and like wall balls to kind of get us ready. It was pretty good. It was pretty fun. Those are the easier ones for me. But we don't have a sled at the gym, and I was like, "Can you do something?" I was like telling our coach, Can we just push you around on like an ab mat or something? Like get 3 of us up there, and just push them around the gym. It's like, really can't make a freaking sled. So we don't really do that regularly. I don't even know what that's like, but I think it'll be okay.
Have any of the people done a competition?
Yeah,
before?
my friends. Yeah, they did this 2 years ago, and we were all going to do it last year. Got canceled because of COVID. Yeah. But it should be pretty fun. And there's like some pretty beasts there who show up who are like just dominate. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think we'll be closer to like an hour and a half, 2 hours, but I think some of my friends will do like more like an hour and a half, a little bit less.
Cool.
I'll just be happy to finish it. And then that first beer afterwards, man, it's going to be the best tasting beer ever. It's going to be brutal. Like we did these workouts when the gym was closed during COVID. It was called like BERT, and we do it in the park. And it was kind of like similar. It's like 200 air squats, 100 push-ups, 150 lunges, 50 burpees. You kind of do up, you go up, and then you run 400 meters in between each one. You go back down, do them all again.
Wow.
And that took me like over an hour, and it was like you're exhausted.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that this is going to basically feel like that.
Are there like referees watching you, or
Yes.
do you like self-report?
Oh yeah. So like if you're doing a wall ball and like your ball doesn't go high enough, like you get a no rep. So you have to do it again.
So you put effort into it, but
or
it
you do like
count.
exactly. You do like a bad burpee, which I've been known to do. Easy for tall guys to try to skimp on burpees, but yeah, that's not a tall friendly exercise. Rowing and the ski erg will be my strengths, I think. Relative strengths.
Yeah.
Relative.
Dude, that's awesome.
Remember how did you ever learn about the law of comparative advantage in economics? It's kind of like answering this question, like, why do doctors have assistants? Because doctors are probably like some of the most smart and capable people ever. Like, why would a doctor pay someone to type their emails for them?
Oh, like even clearly they know how to type.
Even if they're faster typer, or they can do their accounting better. And it's like Ricardo's law of advantage. It's like the basis for trade in like a free market society. And the idea is like my professor used to say, like, even if one guy is like a total zero, and he just is like a non-contributing person or whatever, and like he's worse in every activity than like the physician or the lawyer, you can do the math. Like I can send 1 email an hour and I can heal like 1 patient a week. You can send 5 emails. I can send 1 email an hour. I can send 1 email a week and cure like 2 patients a week. So my ratio is like 1 to 2. You can send 5 emails a week, but you can cure 20 people a week. So you're 1 to 4. So you're relatively better at curing patients than sending emails than I am. So if you add up the gains from trade, like if you split your time between patients and emails, you would have like a total production of like 10 and 2, which is like 12 total. But if you let me do all of the emails, then I can do like 1 and you can do 20 and like your total is 21. So it actually makes sense for people to specialize in what they're relatively better at, even if they're in absolute terms better than the 0 at everything. So that's how I think about me and my friend Mark, because Mark's like one of the best people at our gym. And he's probably better at every activity than I am, but I'm relatively better at skiing and rowing. So if I can take more of the meters from those, even though I won't be completely dead weight and save his energy for things, he's relatively better.
Is this how you talked yourself onto his team?
I was like, guys, listen, even though I'm just terrible and I suck completely relative to you guys, listen, if we can have gains from trade if we specialize and just break that. So yeah, I was 6 years studying economics actually paid off a little bit there. No, it should be really fun though, and it's gonna be awesome. Like celebrating at night, just when we're done with it.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to wear the watch, see how many calories I burn. Like when I play basketball for like an hour and a half, it's like my watch says I burn like 2,000 calories, like 2,100 calories. So I'm thinking this is gonna be around that.
Do you have to pace yourself, like, because you're going to be the first time you're just going to have the adrenaline going, you're going to be amped up.
Totally. Like we do these kinds of workouts a lot at the gym. So I have an idea. I'll have my watch. I know if I'm in like 160s, 170s territory, it's not maintainable. You know, if I'm running, I'm like 155. I feel pretty good. I feel like I can like my heart rate's there. I can like keep running. You know, at the gym with these like high intensity interval stuff, it's like you can push it. If you're close, like 160, 165, 170, but like if you stay there, you're gonna run out of gas too soon. Yeah. So I have a good sense of that. The problem is the work as a gym are like 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes. This is going to be like a lot of work. So yeah, no working out Friday, no drinking, you know, be completely ready to go.
Huge like spaghetti meal.
Yeah, exactly. Carbo load like Michael Scott that morning. Guys, I had pasta carbonara. You guys didn't have that? Like puking in the middle of the warehouse. Carbo load. That's such a funny episode of The Office. Anyway, so I have that to look forward to. I think maybe it's why I have some sleepless nights this week, a little anxiety there. I think it should be fun though.
Dude, it sounds awesome. Especially you get to do it with friends.
Yeah. I wouldn't. As my first thing like this, I wouldn't do it alone. It's a lot, but it's going to be super fun. All of us there. So that's something to look forward to. Get away from the computer for a little bit, you know. Cool. So we've been a little busy here, and let's see. Last week we talked about. What did we talk about last week? Oh, we ended up talking about suspense and transitions and parallel universes and all that good stuff.
Server components.
Right. Server components. That's what it was. Yep. That was cool.
Let's talk about your video.
Oh yeah. From last week
that you published. Last week. Wow.
Yeah.
My time does not exist for
Dad
me.
mode over there. Yeah. Published a video on Saturday. And it's pretty cool. People seem to like it. It's always fun to see like which videos kind of resonate. But this one seemed it did like pretty good. It like performed pretty well on like YouTube in like the first 24 hours. Even though I published it on like a Saturday, which was cool. Something I like about YouTube, it seems like you can just kind of publish it and it's not as dependent on like a tweet in the stream getting caught up. Like I think YouTube might be one of the best platforms for discoverability. Yeah, compared to like any other social media platform.
I think that the barrier to entry to making videos is still really high.
So you're not having like a feed where like the timeline's literally changing
and it's harder to spam. It's harder to spam. I also think that YouTube's algorithm is really good.
Yeah.
I think it's really good. I think you can
it recommends things that you like.
The search is really good.
Yeah.
I think if you published a video at like 3 a.m. on a Thursday,
within the next 24 hours, it'd probably perform around the same.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah. So, cool. So yeah, it was on a little bit of like jitter and jank in like Twitter's loading animation. And I ran into this because I was working on my app and was working on my like auth refactor that we were talking about earlier, and wanted to make it so like sign in or sign up. I was adding sign up, so I was exposing a new route, new entry point to the app, and what happens if you're logged in and you visit sign up, which is like never going to happen, but also like it's interesting because you kind of think that's like an edge case, but then when you're actually implementing the sign up form, it's like the double-edged sword. We've talked about this with React before, where it's like, because it's reactive and long-lived, you have to think about what happens if the session changes, because you're not always going back to the server. So you sign in, and then like normally you would like router.push after a sign in, like in Rails, you would create the user, sign them in, and then respond with a redirect to like the home page. But then you haven't thought about the case where like the user signs in one browser and the other browser's open.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's forced you to think about that, but then you get some benefits from it. And so instead of redirecting, you just want to sign it in, and then you want some logic at the root of your app to say, okay, the auth state has changed for the user. If they're on an invalid route, what do I do? Mm-hmm. So that's what I was building.
Nice.
We've done this before in Next.
I was going to say, we've used this pattern on like 3 or 4 apps.
Yeah. It's always kind of weird. It's always weird. It's like, it's weird for a lot of reasons. Actually, I'm glad we're talking about this. So, you want to redirect them in like the root. So I ended up with like this route guards component. I didn't want to break the suspense thing. So I had my whole app wired up so nice and tidy where like the initial render was just like a series of suspense enabled like data fetches. So like I have to fetch the user. And this is the stuff we talked about like a month ago, where it's like, I need to know whether to render the footer or in like the home page or like the sign in thing, because they're both on the same route. So I need to use auth and get the state of the user, and that itself suspends, right? Mm-hmm. So that suspends. And then if you're on the home page, that suspends. So you see a single loading spinner. So it was fine because like it only ever rendered that suspense boundary while like all that work was being done. Now you render sign up, you suspend on use auth, you find out that the user is logged in, and now you have to push the user to the home page. So this route guards component, which lives in my root of my app, checks and says like, okay, /signup is like a public only route. It's like an anonymous only route, and you're authenticated. So we're going to just anytime you're on an anonymous only route and you're authenticated, we're going to push you to the home page, just like as a first pass, right? Mm-hmm. But that doesn't suspend because that's like in an effect. And yeah,
the idea is like route guard actually has to render. It's not unrenderable.
Exactly. Render, so. You would hope there'd be a way eventually for these things to work together. I know like we were talking about how like you can call router.navigate with React Router and that suspends. So maybe there would be a way if you were using like React Router in like a create React app here, you get to the point where you render the component and then you like call router.navigate.
I'm shaking my head now.
Why?
Because router.navigate has to be in an effect. So the component has to render. So the tree has to be in suspended. The component renders and says...
Can't you set? It's basically saying like you can't set state in render. If you could like set state in like, let's just take it down to like React state, mm-hmm. and like you needed to do some async work. Couldn't you throw and then like re-render the app with the new props, which is like the path name is like / now, and so the tree changes.
But the component...
There should be a way to... It's almost like you want to do it before you even render sign up. It's like... You want to do it in the root. And it's like you want to render your app without the route. You need like a notion of a route guard deeper in. Not in React, but maybe in Next, where the first time you attempt to render the app... This is what suspense is all about. Is the app renderable? If you have like an inconsistent prop, you could just change it. It's like... You need to like throw a promise, figure out if you're on a valid set of props. If not, you like change it or something. I don't really know. You see what I'm saying?
I think like just within the rules of React, you can set state during render if it's like initial state, but you can't do it to...
It's almost like when the user types in /signup, that's not the router's path prop. That's like the desired path prop. So then you run that through logic. which might take some async work, like fetching the session from the server. You find out they're not supposed to be there. And then so you actually render your app with like the slash, something like that. So that you could do it all within a single suspense thing.
I have to think about this. That in my mind, it's telling me that like you actually do want to render the sign up component, and then the sign up component can say like, I'm renderable, but I can't be here. So as it renders, it can then redirect.
Yeah. It just seems to me like my intuition is telling me there's a chunk of async work you need to do before you render the page to figure it out what you're supposed to render. Before you render the app to figure out what's supposed to be rendered. And so you figure it out, and then like now we know, and so now we should render with this set of props or whatever.
Well, in that case, you could say like, okay, so I have to figure things out. So until I figure these things out, I suspend. Maybe that's like the current user and the page that the user's on. And then you render the sign up component. And if you have everything you need to know, so if the user isn't signed in, you render sign up, else you render redirect back to another page.
Right.
But you're still
yeah, I know you're still rendering in this current case, but it does seem like there should be a way to integrate them. Anyways,
I mean, I would think maybe there's like a new blessed pattern to run side effects before, so like something that's like before, like after render, but before use layout effect. I guess it is like use layout effect before commit. But this is like something that conceptually, like I don't know what it is. I know they are adding more effects like this to handle things like there's one that's going to be like for loading CSS and JavaScript, I think. So
I'd be curious to see like if any people listening have good patterns they like for doing route guards in Next, just to see what they ended up with.
Yeah.
But anyways, that all led to I didn't want to figure out or couldn't figure out how to get everything to suspend all at once. So you have this situation where you render sign up, it suspends, fetches the current user, and then redirects. And so in my route guard thing, what I do is like if user is on bad path and needs to be redirected, just return a spinner since you have to render something and call router.push. So then you get that spinner. So you get the first spinner from suspending from auth, then you get the spinner from that, and then you are on the home page, which is now doing its own data fetching, and you get a third spinner. So they're all in exactly the same spot. The JSX tree is actually equivalent because it's not even rendering anything from the pages yet. It's up here in route guards. So it hasn't even rendered the page component yet. It's either rendering route guard spinner or the fallback on the suspense component. But there's a stutter because the spinner is going like this. It's a CSS spin animation, and then it gets unmounted and remounted, and it starts back up at like the 0 degrees or whatever. And you can see it do that. I'm sure you've seen this before. If you're listening, you've seen these like stuttering spinners while like the task is changing. And you can see it on twitter.com. You go up to it, you have spinners on like what's new in the timeline and all this stuff. And there's like different tasks happening. So I just made this little like use synchronized animation hook, and it makes sure like if there are end spinners on the screen, they're all using the same one. There's like a great DOM API called current time. Yeah, we worked on it together when I was preparing. But there's a current time property on like get animation, CSS animations, and you can just set it equal to another one's time. So like the first one that renders, anything after that will use an effect and get it, and it'll just be matching up wherever it left off. And then if you're the last spinner on the page and you unmount, I just have a little stash time property module scope that I set equal to the current time at the time of unmount. And when it gets mounted again, if it's the first time being mounted and there is a stash time, you set current time equal to that. And it's like, it's perfect. It's like you literally can't even tell a spinner is being unmounted, remounted. And so now you visit sign up as an auth user and you just see one spinner and then you're on the homepage. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty awesome. Like, yeah, it's pretty cool.
I think your solution is really good. I think it's like one of those just like, it's not intuitive.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good solution. The only other thing I would think is like, and this can't be done today, but I think part of this stems from fallbacks. Like they're not composable. You render a fallback or you render children.
Right.
So you can't say like if is on invalid route or is suspending render spinner, because like that could like technically keep it all in sync.
Right.
But yeah, I think I kind of feel like the solution you came up with is like, this is something that you need to know. Like, I'm happy that I saw this.
Yeah.
This is something I can carry forward on every React app.
Totally. And like, there's absolutely places where it's valid to want to use like multiple loading spinners or whatever. And there's just no reason not to have this as part of like your loading spinner, because it's just anyone that's coding on your app can just drop it and it's going to look way better. It's just those things, like they draw the human eye, like that kind of movement really sticks out and you can see it. And it just makes it nicer. You know, makes it more polished. The only weird thing, of course, you have like the remix people's voices in the back of your head, is like you're doing this on the client. So it's weird. You visit sign up from a browser and you're logged in, you have a session. I guess you don't know that. The server doesn't know that. So you're going to get a 200 and render the sign up page and then be redirected on the client. Like, that's not ideal. Bots can't follow that. Redirect should happen on the server ideally, right? So like that's kind of weird. Like in some sense, you could say there's valid use cases for spinners that are like, that have nothing wrong with them, and like you want to show coordinated spinner, synchronized spinner, that's fine. This, you could argue, is like you're covering up, you're putting lipstick on a pig. The real problem here is like the redirect should be happening on the server. You'd never have this problem if it was. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting.
I think
is there any way to do that if you have the client fetching on the client?
Get server side props
and you do Firebase stuff over there.
You would stash a cookie on your domain with some Firebase info. Read that and get server side props. If the user is logged in, redirect to the homepage. Otherwise, return.
Show the sign up page.
Yeah, because like,
and then on the client, you would rerun the Firebase code so that the client has a session, or the session's in the cookie now. It's not in the browser. Like when I sign in.
No, you're using like.
It's the same.
You would still have the Firebase code on the client. You would have to, if you didn't want Firebase code on the client, you would have to replace everything on the client to calls to API, like Next API endpoints, or get server side props. But you actually want to call Firebase directly in the client. Because think about it, you're going from the client to Hasura. You're not going through Next.
Right.
Which I think is is a good mental model to be aware of when you're writing SPAs.
Right.
I do. Yeah, I think you're right. Lipstick on a pig. But, now you have like duplicated auth code. You have which is it's complicated. It's hard. It's stuff you have to keep in sync. So
I guess it's like if I was going to add like OG cards and stuff, that's some of the breaking points, like what we ran into with Emmermap, where you like want to run that code.
Yeah.
And then we did like buckets instead of like actually having auth sessions on the server, right? Like to cache.
We still send the auth hook to the server, but the server, we strip out all the user information. Right. So the server, when it's generating a response, only knows what type of user you are, not who you are, so that its content is cacheable. Right. So we don't end up caching a page with like your receipts or something like that.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think
it'd be fun to make an app with Remix.
Yeah, I think I would admit defeat here on like the client side routing SPA and just say you're absolutely right. This should be like server rendered stuff, and then
you're calling like router.push in an effect after you've had a render of the app. It's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's fine to call router.push in a click handler.
Yeah, I would say like route guards and just like a good general pattern for SPAs.
I agree, and I think that stuff it'll end up in Next.
And
okay, because they had an RFC about route guards.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Oh, right. Because then there's the next level, which is like, and we ran into this with some Ember stuff apps we used to work on, which is like, okay, I have my route guards component has a static list. It's like public only, like unauthenticated only routes is like /signup. So I know at that time
/signup and /login.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's a static thing. But what if it depends on data? Like, what if you need to render a 404 because you're missing a movie? You know what I'm saying? So this is even like, now you wait. I guess it's the same thing, but you like if you had to do some data fetching. Remember, like in the model hook, there's two notions of 404s. One is you visit a path that doesn't ever exist, and another is like you're visiting a dynamic route that doesn't exist because the product's not there.
Right. Yes.
So,
yep.
So both those things. And I know Remix has like docs in their pages for like handling both those things on the server, which is really cool, because as complicated as this is for a static path, then you have to think of a slightly, I would have to just update my route guards code somehow. It wouldn't even be in the route guards; it would be in the page.
Yeah, that page would render, but say movie not found or whatever.
Exactly. So, but then you don't have a status code.
I think
like every route is
you don't have a status code, right?
Some
client side routing.
Next does give you static 404 pages but not for dynamic routes. You can't do it.
Right.
Yeah, you have to wait.
Right.
So you do have a 404 page for if you know URL cannot possibly match anything in your app. But if you have like /product/ID, you can throw anything in there. You won't get a static 404 page.
It makes sense too, because if you're doing client-side data fetching and you request like the app shell for movie/ID,
right?
You render the app shell, which is a
200.
It's
a document
it's
on
successful.
your server.
Yeah, it is. And then you do the fetch, and then it doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah, a lot you give up with client-side routing.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think I'm kind of like withholding like. There's like a lot I want to say.
Yeah, to push back. Like if you could.
Yeah, I want to see suspense first, and I want to get a feel for what it's like for components to fetch data and suspend, and then error if they don't have it. Like you never get a render. Like instead they suspend, and I'm kind of it's tough to talk through this because I might actually start writing this and like, oh, it's no better, and this is just like. Yeah, the idea of like a declarative loader before your app runs is really nice. I mean, that's what we did in Ember.
That's literally like a model hook.
Yeah.
And it's a loader function from Remix, and Redwood has something as well. Yep.
Also, too, like, let's be honest, like you might have really complex component trees where like they all kind of have their own data needs, but 96% of your application is like you have one or two pieces of data you're loading for that page. Like you have movie/1. You know what data you're loading. You're loading movie 1. Like you're not loading like movie 1 and the weather for New York City. Yeah. You're just like, you can look at a URL. Yeah. The loader, the name of the loader, the URL, and the data it loads are all kind of.
It's usually the case that you're visiting a URL, loading data based on the URL, and then rendering a page. But I mean, it's also,
Yeah, it gets hairy. It gets hairy. You need to do some.
Yeah, you click edit goals, and you want to fetch all the possible activities. Not tied to any URL state. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, because I don't. There were times in Ember where it got messy, but those times were rare, and so like the loader pattern.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Regardless of all this, I think that route guards is like a good to know pattern. Like if we were going to like teach people about like building SPAs and Next, I like the idea of showing them a route guards component. Yeah, it keeps your app reactive. So if like you log in one window, the other window reacts to it.
Exactly. That is a good way, and it's easy even for me. Even though I've done this a lot, to like you're in the page component and like you run into this situation where you're not supposed to be there. So you want to like redirect, but you have to think from the top down. You want to put it up at the top. You want any piece of state that can change. You want the app to be derived by it as opposed to like an imperative call. Like, basically it's
exactly
the imperative transition code that you're used to doing, because you're thinking when you're building a flow, the user signed up. Now they need to go be pushed to the homepage, but that's like the wrong way to think about it.
So the imperative code here too would be like you have a use effect that runs on mount that says if user is not admin, redirect them away, and it has like that empty dependency array.
Exactly. It's like a red flag.
Yeah. And it's exactly the imperative time dependent code.
Right.
And you want the reactive code, which isn't that far away.
Right. No, it's not. And like after all this, I added this. So I've been working on this for a couple of weeks just in the side, and it's like adding the sign up so that other friends can sign up to this app, and led me to like, refactor the use auth hook so it's reactive, and it's just a lot easier actually, because now not only was it easier to do, it made it so if you had two browsers and you sign one in, the other one out, it's just nice. It feels more airtight. It's more like a Uber model, like a server driven, It's reactive.
It's reactive. Yeah. It's like the funny thing about React is like you start writing a React app and you don't know you need things to be reactive. Like it's just not your mental model. You write imperative code.
Exactly.
And then you get to a point where you have a bug because of all the stuff we just talked about. And then like React is basically teaching you that you have a bug that you didn't think of all the ways your app can change. And then you end up with airtight code that's more reactive, but it's the kind of thing where you're like, man, like, did I really need to handle that? Like, I was just a lot of code I added.
I know, but it always does feel kind of good. It's almost like there's some APIs you could imagine them even making it more like declarative so that you get this reinforced. So like when you click a link, you're like clicking a link to /account, right? And so you're almost thinking about it imperatively. Like I'm clicking a link and I'm going to /account. Like to account is like literally imperative. It's a step to it. Whereas really like clicking a link should like call set state current path to /account, and then your app reacts to that new state update, which is kind of what's happening, but you're thinking about it from the model of the brain of the programmer. You're like, I need to open this form. Like I need to, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of interesting.
I think this is how React Router works. And I think I don't think it's an accident that React Router works like this. I think there's a lot of thinking behind this. So I would love to hear their thoughts on this. But this is how React Router works.
So you like set the current path,
and then you derive,
because you're always in that mindset of like deriving it as opposed to like any imperative calls, which basically shouldn't exist like as much as you can help it. So
and then I we talked about transitions last week, but I think this will like drive these concepts home, because now you can start transitioning to new piece of state,
right,
and then throw that away or do something in the meantime.
Right. Dude, I will say like as I was like adding more users to the app and just testing it out and stuff, it was pretty sweet because I deployed it all to production, just tested and made sure it works. And I had my phone up and I had the browser open, and I was just like adding a new user, and like the top of the app right now just fetches all the users in the app and shows like a ring for each one. And because dude, SWR, it's like a really cool thing, because every time you focus it or do an action, any live query is being revalidated. Anytime you do a mutation, I have that like middleware that just revalidates all live queries. So you're just like, you have it open here. I created someone on my phone. I go back and it's like their ring updates, their goals update.
Oh, cool.
They show up in the thing. I didn't have to write any of that code.
Well, it's good.
Which really says something, because in a traditional server rendered app, you would need to refresh it. Like if you go to GitHub and there's a new issue, you're not going to see it just appear. But like I basically wrote an app that does that without me having to do anything else. Like just from what I normally would do, building it, fetching the issues on load. But just because SWR is like mildly intelligent about refreshing things, it's like pretty sweet.
And also your
it's such a good middle ground between setting up real time and like pushing into a cache and all this stuff, and like having a stale web page.
I think your refresh queries thing nudges you towards that, because mentally you know that these queries could update at any point. So you're not looking at it as here's the data at time of render. You're looking at it as here's the data.
Exactly. And like no matter what the state is, what should the UI be?
Middle ground, awesome saying, because if you think about it, you have like, I fetch data when I render. Like I have a server rendered app. I just fetch data when the page is rendered.
Right.
It's really easy. Like every database, every ORM supports this.
Right. And
then to go over to like real-time updates, it's such a giant leap. It's
my gosh.
If you think about it, like you have to invert the flow where it's like, an event happens in Postgres that pushes out, that goes over a WebSocket. So it's like there's a lot of setup work and that's usually not worth it. It's never worth it. Like user can just reload the page. Like
exactly.
But so this is, like you said, it's a good middle ground where it's still using the pull from the server approach.
Right.
But you just have, like, you as a developer, you don't know when that pull is going to happen.
Exactly.
It could happen when the user refocuses the window. You don't know when they're going to alt tab away. And then also when they do a mutation. So yeah, great.
It's really, really good. I mean, and it's like, I feel like it's almost like the best parts of having a cache and none of the bad parts. It's almost like an append-only cache. Because we've worked with so many caches on the client that try to be intelligent and optimistic and all this stuff, and it's always such a bummer. It can be such a bummer. Relationship store forking.
Yeah, because they push all the, okay, you have a cache on the client. Now you're responsible for maintaining this cache. So you have to, we're going to give you APIs to update the cache, but like you're responsible for it. Where your thing is just like,
the cache is almost an implementation detail.
You have a cache, but I'm just going to randomly write to it at any
exactly.
point. Yeah.
It's awesome. Even like, I was even thinking about this because I haven't seen.
Dude, this is a really good, really good. I think this is really good. Like if I was teaching someone React, I think this would be like data fetching in React. I actually think this is the best approach because they still have their mental model of like, oh yeah, I'm just making fetch requests. I get JSON, I render that JSON. But then you're also kind of training them that like that data is going to change out from underneath you.
Exactly.
And you need to like think about that.
Dude, and you want to get fancy sometimes and like manually update the cache. That's fine. You know, like I did that in the prefetch video 2 weeks ago. You know, I manually update the cache with like the prefetch or whatever. But then you visit it and then it gets wiped away again because it gets revalidated or whatever. Or you want to do some piece of optimistic UI, you can do that. But you should be thinking about that as like a very short-term operation, and like the cache can still be updated at any time with data that you didn't know about. It's a really thinking about like what code we write that leads us into fall into more declarative patterns versus falling into more imperative patterns. That's like a really, really good one. Like it's not fetch data and then render what you just fetched to the screen. It's fetch data, put it in the cache, and render from the cache. And so like there's multiple ways the cache could change. Yeah. Someone else is changing their data that happens to be there. Something that's not originated from the current user's browser. Action, that's the key.
By the way, when we say cache, just to be clear, we're talking about like a client-side store of data you fetch.
Yes,
store. We call it a cache. Yeah, we use the term cache and store. We call it, well, like React is starting to use the term cache for this as well. So,
external store, I guess. I think they call, it's like state that lives outside of it. It doesn't even have to live outside of React. It could live inside of React, but yeah, just a data store. No, it's really cool though.
I know we really like SWR. I think like an SWR, basically what your SWR apps look like. Yeah. That as a layer on top of SWR it would be like a good way to just always have this by default to teach these patterns.
Totally.
Apollo has
how you authenticate it. You know, there's a couple things there that I've learned building 3 or 4 apps with SWR that I like now. It's like a more constrained version. You don't need all the power that the library gives you if you use it in a certain way.
Apollo has a cache and they teach you about the cache, but the problem is they teach you about maintaining
relational
the cache.
Integrity.
They teach you about maintaining the cache. So it's like if you do an update, how does that affect your cache? Where your thing doesn't teach you about that. Your thing is just saying you render from cache and the cache might change. So if you do an update, you have to be aware that that update could change the cache.
It's like massively pragmatic. And it's like, I don't care about overfetching. I don't care about any of that stuff. And it's just so much easier, you know?
I think a data fetching library that did this would be
pretty good.
Would be really good. Yeah. Like just from your mental model eliminates so many bugs.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, even just the revalidating live queries after mutation. It's like I've added features in the last few weeks and it's just like awesome. You just create, even signing up, you know? You sign up and like every page that uses that already works. It's pretty awesome, you know? I was even thinking about it for your video, which, you know, you're working on. You made a clock. You made a deploy notifications thing that shows you when you have a new thing. And it checks every like whatever, 30 minutes.
I have an interval.
You have an interval.
Yep.
And that's one way to think about it. Another way is like if you already have an app that's basically using SWR, SWR already knows, like, it's basically a proxy for, like, I have the user's attention again. Right?
Yeah.
You've made the window active again. You've done a mutation. It's been 6 seconds or whatever their revalidate interval is, but they don't do it when you're not looking at the app. So when I open up my app, it's stale for a second and then it revalidates just like the Twitter app on iOS does. I didn't have to do any of that. So you could just piggyback off of that and not even have an interval.
Yeah.
You just render a component that uses SWR, fetches the notifications endpoint, and then boom, it's just like, it's going to be fresh.
My reason for not doing this, I gotta get defensive here. I would love to do this, and it actually makes a ton of sense. It goes back to this conversation we just had, where like, it's not about me refreshing data at an interval. It's that data might change.
Yes.
And what should I do when that data changes?
Right.
I don't care how it changes or when it changes. I'm going to trust that the libraries I'm using get me those changes often enough.
Yep.
The problem is I'm turning this into a library that can be used in all my apps.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want to have a dependency on SWR.
Yeah, you could. It's pretty small.
No, but it's not about the size, even though I'll tell you later.
Okay.
It's not about the size. Size doesn't matter. No. It's that I don't want 2 versions of SWR. I don't want,
you don't have to make, if the person's using it.
Yeah, because SWR is like, that's something like an app developer is going to install.
No, that's a good point.
I don't want to conflict
you can just
with
copy
that.
paste it into lib or something.
Yeah. Interval with fetch
easy.
is totally fine.
But it is cool how, like, when you click on the to activate the window, everything is fresh at the same time. You know, all the queries revalidate.
Oh, and it's just, again, it's
cool.
just a mental model.
It is a mental model thing. It's like when you call use SWR, even that, talking about APIs that nudge you towards thinking declaratively versus imperatively, use SWR is closer to, like, you really should be thinking about it closer to, like, the user cache.read from, like, the React video.
Mm-hmm.
You're declaring what subset of data you want for this page. It's not about fetching right now. It's like, it's like the current user, and that could change. But, like, depends on the current user, and here's what you render based. It's pretty cool.
Just the term while, stale while revalidate. Yeah. Like, while is just like, okay, there's gonna be a notion of, like, this thing's running. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like, I don't know.
It's
cool.
Example. It's cool. It's like a subtle point, but it's important. You know?
Yeah.
It's pretty neat. Love SWR. Do you want to talk about your video, or do you want to talk about the thing we were going to talk about last week?
We can do let's do 3 minutes on my video.
Okay, cool.
I'm working on video for deploy notifications. So, like, every JavaScript application I work on has, like, this notion of a stale build. So you can imagine that user on Monday opens your app, they start using your app, and then they walk away from the computer, but they don't close your app. They just leave it open in a tab. And then on Tuesday, you deploy new code. And on Wednesday, they come back to their computer. They open the tab that they had open since Monday. They start using the app again, and they're not running the code that you deployed on Tuesday because they have the JavaScript bundle that was built on Monday that they downloaded. And joys
of SPAs.
Yeah, joys. Eventually, like, working on these apps, you get people, especially like when you're doing like a lot of product development, you get people that just, like, they will say, like, I thought you fixed that bug, or didn't you said you added this feature, I don't see it. And
didn't it come up from you because you had the podcast app open and you didn't see something you deployed?
This has come up in every, like, client thing that I've worked on.
Yeah.
There was this has come up in every client thing. And this was like a big thing at TED. Like, our internal tools people would just leave open in the browser. Right. Like, literally just leave open, and, like, they would go weeks without getting new code. Yeah. So you're, like, telling them, like, oh, I deployed all these features this week. It just didn't matter. Yeah. So what the video I'm making does is it pulls an API endpoint, and beautiful thing about Next is you can have API endpoints in your app, and it gets the current get SHA of the deploy or of the local version, whatever. And if it ever changes, so it goes from, like, ABC 1, 2, 3 to DEF 4, 5, 6, it pops up a little notification that says there's a new version of this app available. Click here to reload. Pretty cool. And so Yeah.
Pretty cool. Any Next app can just use that. And you just wrap it up in a hook, right? Like use latest deploy or something.
Yeah, exactly. So this is why I want to going back to like, I wanted to turn this into a package because it's just so easy to use with Next, where like if you're doing this with a Rails app, you've got to like add the API route to Rails, or if you're doing it with PHP, you have to add the API side to PHP. So it's a lot harder to make a library because you have to have all the instructions on how to work with different backends. But hey, Next has a backend piece to it.
That is awesome. What's the instructions for wiring up the server piece? You just like import and export under Pages API, similar to your S3 uploader.
That's what I do. I feel like it's the most flexible. It doesn't lock me into an API.
Yeah. There's no way to do it automatically, right?
No, I've seen people drop like custom servers into their Next apps, and so they don't have to like tell the user an API route. Yeah.
It's easy enough to just create a new file and export it from the package.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally one to export from library /
You'll import, export.
Yep, import it. Yep, exactly. I think if Next had like an official like
middleware,
here's how you can do plugins and register middleware, then I would go down that road. But the Next S3 upload thing has been perfect. Like
it's awesome. I'm about to use it for avatar URLs for the new users. I just take their first letter right now, but like my app has pictures, so I need to make it. They were hard coded for me so far, but I'm going to make it so that new people can upload it. So I'm going to use it again. I already use it for like the progress pics, but I'm going to use it again. And it's fun because it's been like 6 months since I did that, and so I don't remember like how I did it. I'm just going to go see how easy it is because I remember it being really easy.
Yeah. Cool. I've got some changes I want to make.
Nice.
You can guinea pig.
Okay. Sounds good.
Anyway, though, that's going to be the video.
Nice.
It's cool. I think like there'll be 2 videos. I think one will be like how I build this, how I think about building this. And then 2 will be me turning it into
a package. With like TDX or
TSDX.
TSDX. Oh, cool. I'd love to watch that one.
Yeah. I don't know like if I think like TSDX is kind of drifted. I don't know.
Okay, it's not like super maintained.
I think like Turbo Repo
it's a replacement for it.
No, but I think it has all Jared's attention.
Yeah.
So, but man, every time I've used TSDX to set up a React library, it's just been like
easier than when we set up Mirage.
Oh my god, it's so easy, and it's just like also too like my React libraries are not like
they're simple.
I have a hook. I use React State context.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right,
like
right,
it's
right.
not going to town here.
That's cool, man. Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to that. Let's talk about this real quick. Or I guess we're at 49 minutes. Yeah.
Save it.
Let's save it. Yeah. We always say real quick. I remember when we said that real quick server components ended up being half an hour. We're going to save that topic for next time. Because it's a little bit more into it. Yeah, you can just pause. Since we're already at 49 minutes, let's talk real quick about what I've been working on. I don't think I'm going to make a video on it, but it was interesting, the error stuff. I got Sentry set up. I was trying to find this bug in my app, and I thought it was related to time. So I spent all this time setting up a Cypress test that sets the date to today and then ticks forward the clock by a day. And then I was expecting to see this error because I would open up my fitness app in the morning and wouldn't be able to like toggle activities. I had to restart it sometimes. And I thought it was because today's date was stale. I was setting it up outside of render. So after like the app was basically what you were just saying, like open for more than 24 hours, it wasn't refetching it. It wasn't reactive to like changes in the day. So I thought this page was using a stale date and it was running into a foreign key constraint because if I have a goal to do a workout on Monday and I do it, I can't create another one for Monday. There's like a foreign key constraint that says each user, day, and activity, there can only be one that links those 3, a join record, right? And so I was thinking it was a stale today date. And so even though I was clicking on Tuesday, it was still stuck on Monday. And so you ran into the foreign key constraint and it was having trouble. But we went down this long path. I got like Sentry wired up, which we can talk more about later, but I haven't done a ton of that stuff. And it was interesting just doing it all by myself in like my own project and figuring out where things go. There's like lots of different ways you can set it up, how to capture errors, that are due to rendering, that are due to event handlers. We were talking about maybe like putting it in like probably the error boundary is like a good place to do it, which the docs say is a good place to do it. But it ultimately turned out, at least we think, I haven't fixed it yet, but I think it was a stale auth token, because when I first wired up Firebase with my app, which I use for auth, I like either you log in or like you set up the session when the user first opens the app. And I have this whole use auth hook, which I'm really happy with, but it stores the session, which has a token property, and it puts that in like its cache, and then it uses that for each request to authenticate it. But what I didn't realize from Firebase is that the token expires like every hour, let's say, and so I can't just stick it in a cache and use it forever. So I need to revalidate that. But the Sentry actually caught an error that said invalid response from the authorization service, which was my data backend, Hasura, verifying that token on each request to Firebase. So it was like one of those fun war story debugging tours. And it's like you said, it's always after the fact, it's obvious. But when you're looking for it, it's really... And I really wanted to do it like I like doing it like a black box. Like there's a bug in production. I want to like instrument that and figure out what's going on.
Absolutely.
And ideally write a failing test for it as well. So it was good to get some practice with the side clock thing, because there actually is a bug. It says today is yesterday as soon as the day changes and the app's been open. So that's going to be something I write a failing test for and fix. And now I understand how like side.tick works, which it's really cool. It's really cool. But this particular bug was with like my auth hook. And I just basically didn't read like all the guides. I didn't want to worry about reactivity when I was first wiring up Firebase, because I wanted like to simplify like
back to our earlier discussion.
Really it is. And now it's actually easier that everything is like on off change and everything's derived from that. So, but this was literally just like me not understanding that the token expired because the docs were like confusing. I just didn't read them close enough. The session expires. I have a way to do that, but it's the session. The session can actually be valid and the token can be invalid. So that's like what I was missing. Yep. So yeah, a lot of interesting things there.
Yeah, I have a couple comments. So first, I think there's a general rule here that if it's not time, date, or time zone related, you just go on to the next item, which is auth. Right. It's just whatever bug you're solving, exactly. you just go down that list.
Yeah, it's a good rule of thumb. That's like lessons from a weathered programmer right there. Just like jaded. It's like you've seen this a million times.
I don't think it's fair to say, I just didn't understand it when I was setting it up, or I just didn't want it to be reactive. I think the takeaway here is like. There's a saying that like a lot of DevOps people say, which is I debug in production.
Yeah, you mentioned that. That's interesting.
So this is what you were doing, which is like, I know I have this bug in production. I can't get it locally.
Right.
I think it has something to do with like I use the app on Tuesday and then the day changes to Wednesday.
Right.
So it's like, I really like, how would I do this locally? Do I just walk away from my computer for 12 hours? Right. And so this idea, like what you did was add Sentry.
It's kind of like what you would do if the code base wasn't yours. If you hadn't done anything.
This black box idea, like add Sentry, start instrumenting a bunch of calls, wrapping, sending events to Sentry. Like this is what it means. I debug in production. It's like literally like how would you put a console log in production, given that like these are functions running on lambdas that you can't just open up a terminal to.
Right.
And so I think there's like a really powerful skill.
Yeah.
And so I think that like the process of Okay. For
not like making any assumptions. Even though I know I could have an idea and maybe I could just commit some code and see if I move this within the render function, if it fixes it. I didn't want to do anything. I deliberately did not do that.
Exactly. It's very easy for smaller apps to open up the code and just like have it all in your head and read through it and be like, oh, okay, that's a bug. But I think it's a real skill, especially for like huge, complex applications to say like, okay, we know there's a bug here. We know it's around. You knew when it was, when the user was clicking this button.
Yes.
But you didn't know why it was happening.
Yes.
So then like adding instrumentation around the button click, and then you can like slowly, it's also too, it's not just like, oh, I had one console log and I fixed a problem. It's, okay, that didn't work. What do I add the next day?
Right.
and you eventually drive, black box. Like eventually you capture all the parameters that happen when this bug is present. Yeah. And then now you can start to write tests for it. Yep. Then TDD.
It's painful. Fix. I mean, it is a good skill. And
I think it's really important. I think it's really important.
It's painful. I mean, the reason it was painful is because I hadn't done Sentry yet. There were some weird hiccups getting that integrated, adding the Sentry integration to Vercel. Oh, wait, am I done? The instructions are done. No, you have to add the Vercel integration to Sentry. The reason I picked Sentry, because I was looking at a few of them, is because they have a Next.js Vercel integration. So I was like, this should be easy. And like it mostly was, I mean, honestly. But it's like you said, they were just trying to do some magic around setting environment variables. Probably would have been easier for me to just copy paste them into the Vercel dashboard. Whatever, it's fine. Got that all set up. Then you have to understand like how to actually have an error show up. And all this time, I have a pretty good sense of like what code I could be writing to fix this and move on. But it's like you're saying, I was trying to practice that skill of like the instrumentation from a blindfold perspective.
This is like an app. I mean, imagine like you're hitting this bug that you think you know what it is, but you don't exactly know. And this is an app that's like you created in like the last 6 months, 9 months. Yeah. And it's an app that you wrote top to bottom yourself. Like, imagine you come into an app that's like 10 years old, that's been worked on by hundreds of different developers. Like you can't, so you need this like I debug in production.
No, that's and like, I like that.
Having tools like instrumenting to your error logging service, like dumping data when the button is clicked, when the error shows up, using like feature flags, like, does this bug happen for users that have X, Y, and Z turned on? Like all that stuff is super powerful.
Yeah. I'm not done with the pain yet. So then you get the integration.
Sorry, I just didn't want to hear it anymore. So I did, go.
You get the integrate. I'm just trying to more for like just the record books. Like, so we got it working and we were like pairing on this a little bit together. Like Sentry's build fails if you don't give it API keys, which is weird because
like you have like different build and development.
Yeah, it's weird. And you don't want to like put your Sentry API keys in your GitHub action because it's not running Sentry anyways. You can disable it at runtime, but it would fail the build anyways. So you do that. I have it running locally. I want to capture an event. I'm seeing errors. I'm not seeing the event. I'm confused. Is it working? I throw an error during render. Sentry picks it up. Okay, Sentry has some global error handling that it's listening for. But then my API response errors and it doesn't show up. Okay, is that because I'm catching it somewhere else in the app? Is it because GraphQL requests and errors are not like 500s and is only wired up for 500s? Should it be working here or whatever? So there was a lot to that. And eventually we got to like using the capture exception API from Sentry around the spot that we saw. And we were able to log an exception and then add context, which was also a weird API to figure out. It's like very enterprisey in a lot of ways. It's like not friendly to someone like me who's like, I've had experience doing this. It's just a whole new system, and it's just a lot for when you're trying to. It's optimized for people who have like grown with it over time, I think, and you're setting up for a new app and you just want something simple. It's tough.
It reminds me so much of like Auth0, where Auth0 is like, we're an auth and login service, but our system is so enterprising and abstract. We actually don't have the notion of login or password. You know what I mean? It's like,
right, exactly. It's not like
it's grown over time.
Totally. It's not like I need more. It's not like I don't have enough experience with it. It's exactly what you said. Auth0, I've set up auth services a ton of times, but if I were to go set up Auth0 today in an app, it would be just as painful because there's a lot of incidental complexity like we were talking about last week. And that's fine. That makes sense for what they're doing. I'm not necessarily criticizing them. I'm just saying there's a lot of incidental complexity with these tools that are very that are very featureful.
You know, Google Analytics is a great example of this, where it's like, I just want to see people that are visiting my website, and then boom, you're just like, we don't have the notion of websites.
Exactly.
So you need events.
So you have a viewing container, and then you use the website viewing container adapter because you happen to be using a website.
It's just such. You have the tag manager. It's just But there are analytic services that are like
no notion of website.
There are analytic services.
What do I click add website?
There are analytic services that basically capture, like, their value add is like, you're a developer working on your app.
Yeah.
You don't have time to learn all this stuff. So we're just going to give you analytics for your website.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so I think error logging, there might
should
be a
could
service.
be one that's more targeted towards.
Not like, that, you know, the people in our circles.
Yeah,
like
totally.
The microconf kind of.
Yeah. But what was funny is like I still thought it was this time bug the whole time, and we were like logging it when we were manually triggering the error. Like there's a null, it violated the constraint in the database that I had added, and I was like, that's what I'm expecting to see. And then the next morning I wake up, see the bug on my phone, expect to see it logged, and it's not. So there's an error happening, but it wasn't being sent, and I think it's because it was. What we eventually figured out a couple of times, I did see in the Sentry logs an event for an auth token being wrong. And so that's how we found out, at least that's what I think, I'm pretty confident that's what it is. But the auth token's wrong. So it was capturing it, but it wasn't capturing it like that morning, like this morning when I actually did it, because I think that's like a read. No, that's like, it's just somewhere in the logic. It's not making it to Sentry. So I still need to update my instrumentation code because I would have liked to see that in Sentry.
Yes.
Because that's like a bug. And I just want to see
imagine you tag that instrumentation with like, this is the error that happened.
Yeah, this is happening when the user's trying to toggle an activity.
Yes, yep.
And I want to see that. And I didn't see it for some reason, even though I have that logic wrapped. And I think it's because it bails out earlier in whatever.
Somewhere,
I just need to figure it out. So
this also
it's tricky. It's like, and even just, dude, even exception and error handling in JavaScript, how to set it up. You have mutations, you have fetches. It's like you were saying, errors are used, like errors and exceptions are different things. Like errors are used for multiple things in an application. One is like an exception, which is like really the way an exception should work is like it is an unanticipated path through your code.
I literally can't tell you what to do when I hit this. Like my best advice would be like reload the app, or I have to go like fix a bug and
redeploy it. Whereas if you try to sign up with a username that already exists, the backend's going to communicate that to you with an error, but it's not an exception.
It's valid code path
because it's something you can anticipate. So now you're in a spot where the protocol is an error for both of these things, exceptions and non-exceptions. You set up Sentry to capture exceptions. So you have to be a little more intelligent about when you capture an exception from your app code. So I'm still not, I'll be happy. I think in a couple months from now, as I tweak this, I'll end up with something I'm happy with, a pattern I can bring, just like the auth stuff, which I'm really happy with now.
I think
it's confused. There's not like an easy, I don't know.
I think a lot of this is like testing. Your first test is always the hardest to write.
Yeah.
Right now, you don't know where the seams are.
Right.
So you don't know what to mock.
Right.
I would say
you had a really good point. You were saying like if you have an error because someone's trying to sign up with an existing username, that's not something you want to capture as a Sentry exception, because either you're already handling that in your code, which I'm showing that like this username's already taken, or if I hadn't, like what would happen to the app? Would the app crash? If it did, then that's a problem. But if let's just say it didn't, then that's fine. It's just like, it doesn't work or whatever.
I guess there's another form.
Like my app could recover from this bug. Like it would try to set it would try to toggle the activity, but then it would just untoggle it, and maybe it just works if you try it again, right? So that's fine. I don't want to see that. Maybe let's just say I don't want to see that. What I definitely do want to see, a subset of all these errors, is if the Sam's a bad developer screen shows up, because I have an error boundary on my whole app and it has a crying emoji and it says Sam's a bad developer. My buddy Rob's like, I see this like once a day. And I think it's because of this auth bug. So you were saying, the error boundary has like a component to catch. And so maybe that's like a good starting point.
Yeah.
Like if I was, again, we're always trying to think of like the general kind of lessons. You're starting a new app. You want to have an error boundary. Like I know Remix apps have error boundaries around all of them. If you're seeing an error boundary, that is a pretty good proxy for like, this was an unanticipated code path in my app and I want to know about it. Mm-hmm. So then you capture the exception. But then as you start writing forms, and if you're making an AJAX request that like fails because they're unauthenticated or because it's a bad request, you're going to handle that in a catch, and you don't want Sentry to automatically show that because you're using the error. The error is the protocol, but you're using it as control flow because that's the contract.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Does that seem right?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I would say, like, I think it's probably better to be like less generic here and just like have your mutations wrapped in a try catch to start, so you know which ones are failing.
Yeah.
And if they,
I did do that.
Yeah, I know.
But then we undid it because we wanted to handle it locally.
No. That's what I mean. Start wrapping things locally and not generically.
Right. I feel like, just thinking out loud, I need to code more. But I feel like if you have it and you don't wrap the local, like you're an event handler submitting a form, if you don't have it in a try catch, and it will render an error boundary, and the error boundary will catch. No. Because it's not a render time
it's
error.
Not a render.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's why it's confused. The mutations are different. If you don't try catch it, you should capture the exception. If you do try catch it, you can avoid capturing the exception.
Maybe there's some world where you set some state of the mutation, which triggers a re-render, which suspends
exactly
now posts the mutation and suspends until the mutation is and now you'll trigger an error render.
True declarative Sentry. And then your logs go like this because you have a dangling effect. Yeah, so it'll be fun to get more practice with that. But I'm learning a lot. It's fun. It's good.
Yeah. I think it's a really good skill to have.
Yeah, it's tough. It's painful. There's times where it's painful, and it's like
I don't know. Maybe,
but I think it's good practice.
Maybe like explore a few of the different error services, because I think there's going to be ones that are more.
I think Sentry's pretty good. I asked on Twitter. I got like 20 something responses. A lot of people said Sentry.
It just reminds me of all the other.
Yeah, I think it's fine. And they have like some APIs for setting context. So like I think I'll end up with that at the root, like
the current
when you sign in.
Is,
exactly. Yeah. So like if like a random mutation errors, it'll just, I don't have to do that. What we did locally, where you like add all this context, it's just there. Yep. So we'll see. Yeah, pretty cool though. Cool. Shall we wrap it?
Yeah.
All right. Everyone, put your prayer hands together for Ryan to get some sleep this week.
Yeah.
Dad life, man. That thing is just, yeah. What was I going to say? I don't remember.
Anyways. Good luck on your competition.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. My brain's fried. It should be fun. Hopefully I'll be here Monday. Maybe I'll be dead from it. Hopefully it goes all right. Cool. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
See ya.
Bye.